during one of the worst periods of the Prophet Muhammad's life. The greatest voyage in human history took place in Mecca.
You believe that Muhammad went to heaven on a winged horse?
Yes, I believe in God.
Yes, I am referring about Al-Isra wal-Miraj, the voyage of the seven heavens. You know how, when you're doing morally and assisting others in seeing the reality, people never seem to appreciate you. That is precisely what transpired with Muhammad, our prophet. The prophet was first subjected to a boycott. Then came the deaths of his cherished uncle, Hazrat Abu Talib, and his spouse, Hazrat Khadija. He was so stoned in Taif that his shoes started to fill with blood. And to cap it all, he was forced to live under protection of someone else after having his citizenship in Mecca revoked. However, Allah made the greatest voyage known to humankind, the journey of the seven heavens, for the Prophet Muhammad during these trying times. An unparalleled voyage. This historic journey, which took place in the 11th year of his prophetic career, was a major turning point in his life. The Prophet endured extreme hardships in Mecca prior to this. But soon after this voyage, he moved to Medina, where he became the head of a new state. And this drastically changed his life. And it all began that one night in Mecca at midnight, when the Prophet was driven by Jibreel on the Burak from Mecca to Jerusalem to Baitul Muqaddas. Burak's name is derived from the word bark, which means lightning, and alludes to its extraordinary speed. The Prophet led all the prophets in prayer at Baitul Muqaddas. The door to the first heaven was opened for him by Jibreel, who led him there. Furthermore, don't even consider your home's door when I mention door. You cannot imagine how much larger and more magnificent this thing is. The Prophet first saw Adam in the first heaven, where the people of paradise were on his right, and the people of hell were on his left. We are all the descendants of Adam, the first human in the universe. The Quran has 25 mentions of him. He gave a greeting to the Prophet, and Adam returned the favor. Then, according to Islamic tradition, the Prophet was carried to Qaidum, the second heaven. He met Isa there. Yes, the same Isa that everyone knows as Jesus. Yahya, his cousin, and the man you most likely know as John the Baptist, was also with him. They were born in the state of Palestine during the Roman Empire 2 millennia ago. Their lives were really difficult. Yahya suffered a martyrdom at the hands of a dictator, and his martyrdom is today linked to that of Imam Hussein in Karbala. Isa was going to suffer a similar fate, but at the last second, Allah took him out of this world. The Quran makes 5 mentions of Yahya and 25 mentions of Isa. They replied when the Prophet greeted them. After that, Yusuf, also known as Joseph, was brought to the third heaven, and the Prophet met him there. Yusuf, who was born in Palestine some 3,600 years ago, was well known for his extraordinary beauty. It's said that ladies might slash their fingers without even realizing they were hurting. We are all aware of his ascent to the position of viceroy in Egypt, the then superpower, where he held the highest rank among ministers following the monarch. The Quran contains 27 mentions of Yusuf, and it contains a more thorough account of his life than the Bible does. When the Prophet greeted him, Yusuf grinned beautifully as usual. Following that, the Prophet was carried to the fourth heaven, which the Quran refers to as Zahra. He got to know one of the first humans, Idris, there. Idris, after Shi's and Adam is regarded as the third prophet. In addition to being the first to use a pen and conduct observations about the stars and planets to improve life, he is also recognized as the first scientist for being the first to rebel against injustice. The Quran makes two mentions of Idris. When the prophet uttered salam, the peace was restored by Idris. The prophet was next carried to the fifth heaven, where he was introduced to Aaron, also known as Harun. After Musa pleaded to Allah to include his brother Harun in his mission, he was made a prophet. Among the best intellectuals of Bani Israel was Harun. Harun was the person his brother Musa required to know the scriptures, as he was raised in Pharaoh's household. The Quran has 20 mentions of him. After the prophet greeted him, Harun gave a kind reply. The prophet encountered Musa, the prophet who is mentioned in the Quran the most, 136 times, in the sixth heaven, which is called Araus. Musa's epic tale has been as the basis for numerous novels, comic books, and motion pictures, including Superman and Harry Potter. After 400 years of severe persecution, this man guided the Israelites out of Pharaoh's control. Musa greeted the prophet, and he greeted Musa back. The prophet attained Ajma, the seventh and last heaven, at last. There, he got to know Ibrahim, his great-grandfather. Yes, Abraham, the famous person who has played a significant role in religion for thousands of years. Islam is practiced by almost 60% of the world's population. Muslims even offer up prayers in their 5 daily prayers for Ibrahim. Following that, Sidratul Muntaha, the ultimate border that no creation may cross, was visited with the prophet. However, the prophet was granted access to the VIP room and had a private audience with Allah. When his companions later questioned the prophet about seeing Allah, he said that there was a veil of light. Things started to get serious at this point in the adventure. Salah prayer, the most significant Islamic commandment, was made mandatory for Muslims. Because it was impossible to construct a mosque in Mecca prior to this, Salah was not required. However, following this voyage, Muslims settled in Medina, where they erected the first mosque. After this, Salah established a strong and orderly community in Medina. The city soon overthrew the Roman and Persian empires. The prophet continued to pray to Allah, finally reducing the number of required prayers from 50 to 5 each day after consulting Musa. Although Musa proposed a reduction to 5, the prophet was content with the current number. The prophet saw heaven, torment, and the consequences of sin during this journey. After that, he went back to Jerusalem before arriving at Mecca. He observed a caravan whose camel had bolted on his way back. The entire voyage had taken place in a single night, and when he arrived in Mecca, everyone was still asleep. It may seem ridiculous, but after countless years, Einstein emerged and demonstrated that such a phenomenon could genuinely occur. Time isn't absolute, according to Einstein's theory of relativity. Time moves extremely slowly for someone who is traveling at the speed of light. Burak means lightning speed, and for the prophet, it felt incredibly long, but for everyone else, it was just another ordinary night. Even though the prophet knew that if he informed people in Mecca about this journey, they would make fun of him, he told them the whole narrative. Even though he had never been to Baitul Muqaddas, they made fun of him and inquired about it. The prophet was shown Baitul Muqaddas by Allah to help him remember things. and to their amazement, he responded to all of their inquiries. He also recounted the caravan, which supported his account and came in short order. This story caused some Muslims who had poor faith to turn away from Islam. Not even the friend of the Prophet, who had provided him with shelter, believed him. However, Abu Bakr supported him, arguing that it had to be true since the Prophet had spoken it. He was referred to as Abu Bakr Siddiq after that day. This voyage wasn't simply any other. It signaled the beginning of Islam's ascent and the conclusion of its difficult times. The Prophet was invited to Medina as their leader by 72 Medinans the next year.